Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, back with a look at the wide receivers for the Week 2 slates here on DraftKings and FanDuel. Dropping these position previews every single week ahead of every Sunday main slate throughout the rest of the regular and postseason for the NFL here in 2021. So if you like that, make sure you subscribe to the video to the channel at the link below. By doing so, you'll get an alert when we post a new video like this or about the upcoming showdown slates that Brian Jester is covering, stuff like that. If you like this video today, please give us a thumbs up. It lets us know that you like this content and you want us to continue producing it. If you have any questions for the staff, first thing you can do is obviously drop one in the comment section below. We'd be happy to address it there. You can also join our Discord, which is linked below the video. And once you do that, you can actually ask our staff and chat with our Occupy members about every single NFL DFS slate that is coming up throughout the rest of the year. Learned a lot about some wide receivers through 1 week of usage, across the league. And it's really fun to kind of think about how that's going to play out moving forward. Some of the pricing on DraftKings and FanDuel still hasn't necessarily caught up to, the route participation data, to the anticipated depth of targets some of these receivers have, and just how involved a lot of these guys are in their offenses in particular. So why don't we dive on into it and start talking about the Week 2 slate. First wide receiver that I'm most interested in, that we're most interested in here. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are, of course, the highest implied team total offense on this slate according to the odds makers projection for Week 2 action. And so our favorite receiver is going to have to be, as I kind of navigate to Tampa Bay here, playing in the 4 o'clock window, the most expensive one there is, Chris Godwin. He led the Bucs with 14 total targets in the Week 1 tilt against the Dallas Cowboys. Ran the majority of his routes out of slot positions. Had double the amount of targets of Mike Evans and Antonio Brown, individually in that game. So hard not to love Chris Godwin the most out of the three for all of those reasons. We certainly like him a lot in our model as well. I believe we have Godwin projected for 9.2 targets in the Occupy model this week, which is now live on OccupyFantasy.com. So if you are a paid subscriber, you can go on over to Occupy Fantasy, check out our NFL model by position, and see some of the opportunities that we have projected for the wide receivers, obviously, but all the other positions as well. So Godwin is our favorite Buccaneer. Staying in the same game, we really, really do like Calvin Ridley a hell of a lot. Ridley led Atlanta in Week 1 in targets and air yards. We expect him to do that again. We actually have him projected for 10.5 targets here in Week 2 against the Buccaneers in the Occupy model. It is the most targets that we have projected in the model for this upcoming slate on FanDuel and DraftKings. So hard to get away from considering Calvin Ridley as a really strong option as a result. I think the Heisman Trophy winner from last year had a pretty strong debut. We weren't necessarily fully sure how some of these rookie wide receivers were going to be unleashed, but as I get down here to them, hard to be displeased with what Devonta Smith gave you in his first game with Jalen Hurts. 8 targets, led all the receivers for the Philadelphia Eagles, and frankly, if this was a game that hadn't gotten completely out of hand, I believe Philadelphia won by 3 or 4 touchdowns. He may have been even more involved, may have seen even more production in that game. We like this spot for him a lot against the San Francisco 49ers. Should be a little bit of a tighter game. Jalen Hurts should be looking his way early and often as a result. Ran a route on virtually every single passing down that Jalen Hurts had. So, again, another guy where it's really, really hard to dislike the usage that we saw here. I think a lot of people this week are going to be playing Josh Allen in low-risk lineups. Seems to be someone that they like a lot based off of some of the things that we've been reading, and seeing posted across the industry. So, of course, why not play and pair, if you are playing Josh Allen, pair him with his best wide receiver. But he's a great play on his own as well. Diggs with 14 targets last week. He and slot route specialist Cole Beasley played a ton. Emmanuel Sanders played a ton for the Bills. And just across the board, they had a pretty poor game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 1. So Stephon Diggs, still another wide receiver that is going to be a great play in Week 2. We have him projected for 9.1 targets in the Occupy model this week. So plenty of opportunities projected to go Stephon Diggs' way as well. Talked about one rookie wide receiver that we like. There's another one on here that I think might be even better to deploy in your lineups this week. And it's got to be the highest drafted wide receiver from this current rookie class, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had 97% route participation rate on all of Joe Burrow's dropbacks in week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. We have him projected for 8 targets in our model this week, which is certainly fine, especially at this atrociously low $5,000 salary. He had a 16-yard depth of target at wide receiver in that first game. Really, what's not to love here? 5,000 here, 5,500 over on the FanDuel side of things, if that's where you play. Jamar Chase looking like the most mispriced player at the wide receiver position this week, quite frankly. So Jamar Chase, a really, really, really strong play here in week 2. It's a pretty classic spot here in NFL DFS where the field goes all in on a guy and he doesn't really do anything for you. In week 1, Marcus Callaway was 20% owned in DraftKings Millionaire Makers, saw 2 targets, 14 yards on 1 reception. Not what everybody was looking for. We expect to see his projected the number of lineups that he's projected to be featured in this week to be closer to the 5% threshold. Now you play Marquez Callaway. If you didn't play him last week because you were afraid of the ownership, this is the week to play him. He still ran a route on every single passing down drop back that Jameis Winston had in week 1. Problem was the Saints really ran away with the game. They had that one long passing touchdown that actually went to Deontay Harris. So that certainly does skew things in people's minds a little bit. But don't misunderstand or think that Marquez Callaway was not involved here for the Saints in week 1. He was on the field for every single passing play. The targets are going to come in a more competitive game for Marcus Callaway. He's a pretty strong play here in the cheaper salary range. 4,200 here, as you can see, 57 over on FanDuel in week 2. Something that I think it surprised me, may have not surprised other people who were more keyed in on this, but KJ Osborne is the wide receiver 3 for the Minnesota Vikings. And he ran a route on about 87% of the passing plays for the Minnesota Vikings in week 1. His usage spiked because we think about what the Vikings did the last couple of years. They ran a lot of 12 personnel. They had 2 tight ends on the field a lot with Kyle Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr. Well, those 2 guys are no longer here for the Vikings. They do still have Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, who are going to be great plays every single week when you want to play Vikings players. But now KJ Osborne is in the mix as this potential slot route specialist in 11 personnel packages, which they do seem intent on deploying a lot more often, at least early here in the season. That does appear to be the case. KJ Osborne is that third guy. He's just 3,300 here on DraftKings here in week 2, 4,600 over on the FanDuel side of the world. So you're interested in a potential game stack, let's say, of the Arizona Cardinals and Minnesota Vikings here in week 2. KJ Osborne might be the cheap piece that you need to make that fit and get some of the best plays in your lineup around that game stack, hypothetically speaking. So we like KJ Osborne a lot for that reason. Really sucks when a receiver goes down, with an injury that'll knock him out for a while, like this guy did, Michael Gallup. But that does open an opportunity for the next man up for the Dallas Cowboys to step up and play a lot more in games and hopefully see a lot more targets, which is something that we want to see here in tournaments. Cedric Wilson, he's just 3,100 here on DraftKings, 4,900 on FanDuel in week 2, and probably definitively the next best guy behind Amari Cooper, behind CeeDee Lamb. Obviously, we love those guys. They both saw 16, 15 targets in week 1 in that super up-tempo game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But now it does look like Cedric Wilson will have an opportunity for 4 quarters here in week 2 and beyond to be the next best thing at wide receiver in this up-tempo Cowboys offense. His targets aren't going to be as valuable as CD's or Amari's for sure. He's definitely more of a slot route guy, ran over 80% of his routes out of the slot positions in week 1, but hard not to like the lineup flexibility that he gives you at his price point here. We did get word early here in week 2 that Odell Beckham Jr. will not be playing for the Cleveland Browns against the Houston Texans. So it's hard not to at least consider Anthony Schwartz, their rookie 3rd-round draft pick, who had a pretty decent role in week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs, had a really, really high 24-yard, depth of target on average. I don't know if we can trust that yet. It was just 5 targets in in a game where they felt like they needed to be aggressive against the Kansas City Chiefs. So we'll see. But, Anthony Schwartz, very, very interesting prospect, a world-class sprinter in his own right, when he was in high school. So definitely think this is an intriguing spot for him against the Texans. Should be lined up out there quite frequently as one of the main receivers for the Browns in a matchup that they are projected to score a lot of real-life points. So hard to not like that here. That's going to do it for this rundown, folks. For more information, make sure you keep an eye out for our daily plug, which will be posted at occupyfantasy.com on Friday evening. That's where we'll give you our favorite expensive and value plays here at the wide receiver position, but also all the other positions on the slate for you to consider. The plug will also include some contest recommendations, some game stack ideas that the staff here at Occupy is looking at, some low risk and high risk general roster construction tips tailored to the context of the slate that you can utilize as well. So you certainly want to make sure that you check those things out as well. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel below. If you do that, you will get notified when we post more videos like this or other content that you're accustomed to seeing, like the Showdown preview videos that we're doing a great job with that Brian Jester has been posting for a couple of years now. You certainly want to check those out as well. I'm Chris for Occupy. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.